Hi, this is Holt Rubino from DevilsDigest.com. I'm over here with staff member Ralph Amsden at Arizona Stadium, where we just witnessed one of the more dramatic wins in the Territorial Cup. And even though there's been a lot of these in recent memory, or maybe even not so recent memory, Arizona State comes on top 41-40, finishes the season 7-5, regular season I should say, Pac-12 record 5-4, so ensuring both a winning season overall, winning season in Pac-12 play, and denying Arizona in the process bowl eligibility as the Wildcats finish at 5-7. Ralph, there's a lot of things to digest after such a crazy game. But what are your some initial thoughts in terms of what went wrong for Arizona State in the first half and what went so well for the Sun Devils in the second half?
Well, I have this theory that what Arizona State does is they essentially try to keep themselves in games that maybe they don't need to keep themselves in. It was the Washington strategy, right? That's when they really first unveiled it. Go out there, win the line of scrimmage, give yourself a chance to win at the end. And it sounded absurd, especially when they kept losing one-score games. Like Herm Edwards said after the game, they've been in 9 one-score games this year. And it sounded absurd when they're losing game after game after game. But then coming into today, it felt like they're doing the same thing. And Arizona State came in having the better season with the superior talent, with Arizona coming off of a game in which they allowed 69 points and 7 touchdown passes. Well, Arizona State only completed 12 passes going into the fourth quarter. Only 5 more completions than Washington State had touchdown passes, and so it felt like, what is Arizona State doing letting this super dangerous quarterback, very dangerous running back, and incredibly dangerous special teams hang around? And it got to a point where I felt like it was fairly obvious that it was over. I mean, you 40-21. University of Arizona, you could see them letting off the gas a little bit, but with the big playability of Khalil Tate, you figure even if they let off the gas, all he has to do is scramble once. That's it. And then they'd be able to bleed the clock from there. That's not how it worked out. As far as what they did right in the second half, I mean, it really comes down to you just witnessed the effect that Herm Edwards has on this team. Everybody stays calm. Everybody acts professional. Nobody gets flustered. He takes it upon himself. It's his job to remind people what their job is so that they're not focused on the scoreboard, so they're not focused on any of the peripheral stuff, the fighting, coaches talking trash, people going for Manny's knees. Nothing like that should be your focus, just the play at hand. And I mean, without Herm Edwards, maybe they don't find themselves in the hole that they were in, but without Herm Edwards' influence, do they win this game? And it's a weird conundrum, right?
Yeah. And I can't fault any Arizona State fans that left early over here. After all, starting in the fourth quarter down 40-21, there definitely wasn't a lot of faith. Besides this Arizona State bench next to us, there wasn't a lot of faith that Arizona State was going to be able to pull it out. Resiliency, and I know it's one of the biggest cliches in college football, NFL too, but Arizona State once again shows up in the fourth quarter. Now, hasn't always worked well. Herm Edwards said, we've been in 9 close games, 5 we lost, 4 we won. So I mean, you're batting just a little under 500. Tonight, however, Arizona State scored Arizona 20-0. Just something that you definitely did not expect after watching the first 3 quarters, the way they unfolded. Let's talk a little about the Arizona State defense. I thought that they were facing a unit that really came as advertised. Khalil Tate had, I believe, over 280 yards passing. Arizona as a whole had 236 yards rushing. J.J. Taylor, their star running back, another guy that came as advertised, 144 yards rushing. This defense really scuffled a lot, not only in the first half, but I thought even in the third quarter. But the fourth quarter, was it really just a matter of just being more physical, or was it something else that you saw from the Arizona State defense in those crucial moments?
Well, Arizona State is battle-tested, and as Manny Wilkins said about the University of Arizona team, he put a little bit more stank on it when he said it, the losing team with a losing attitude, right? University of Arizona got blown out by Houston. University of Arizona lost to BYU. They've had some success in conference in what has essentially been a down year for a lot of the conference. Their marquee victory really had to be University of Oregon, who they've always really given trouble to. But at the same time, I think that when you have one battle-tested team that is very confident, that is in control, that feels like they can get whatever they want when they want, sometimes you don't have a backup plan. Things are just going well. You don't have to have a backup plan for when things aren't. Meanwhile, Arizona State's been in this situation over and over and over again. When they were down 5 points, I was standing over behind the bench. Manny Wilkins had his feet on the seat, and he was sitting on the bench back next to Eno Benjamin. They looked bored. They looked like they were just ready to get in and get another chance at it. And, I mean, Eno Benjamin to be bottled up the way that he was, to show the resiliency that he did, to ultimately, to have 17 yards on his first 10 carries, and then in the ensuing carries after that, 3 touchdowns, end up with like 83 yards. Manny Wilkins, obviously his touchdown run was very important in the way he just kind of stared down the crowd after. You could see they were cool, they were calm, and they were collected. And so when University of Arizona essentially decided to start to put the game in cruise control, and then they wanted to get back out of it, when those things weren't working, they weren't ready for that kind of adversity. And I think that comes from a season in which you've had issues with depth, you've had issues with quarterback health, because just observing this game, if you watch the first 3 quarters, if you're an Arizona State fan and you can take the Territorial Cup goggles off for just a moment, Khalil Tate is an animal. He's something completely different than we've seen before. You take away his game-breaking ability to run the ball, and all of a sudden he turns into one of the most dangerous pocket passers in all of college football. I thought that Noel Mazzoni was putting on a coaching clinic. I thought that the special teams were completely outshining Arizona State, and here we are on the field after the game still talking about a win. And a lot of that just has to do with the attitude that Arizona State brings in, day out, and a lot of that's because of Herm Edwards.
Yeah, before we move to ASU offense, special teams, a really atrocious game. There is no other way, I'm sorry, to describe what we saw over here. Michael Steve Dalton, I guess maybe was somewhat okay with the punts, but he had one that was returned for quite a bit. Return yardage, off the top of my head, I think Arizona did have both kick and punt return over 100 yards. Really put, I thought, the ASU defense on their heels with excellent field positions for the host time and time again. This is definitely a game that Arizona State won despite its special teams. There's no doubt about that. Now, when you look at Arizona State offense, we talked about being absolutely incredible, outscoring the Wildcats 20-0. We do have to give credit for the defense, who caused 2 turnovers. First interception by Ashari Croswell. This is a young defensive back that's the first 5-6 games of the season. Whatever the opposite of Velcro is, that was Ashari Croswell when it came to interceptions. The last few games, Croswell can't even drop an interception even if he wanted to. It's outstanding development from this young man. And Tyler Johnson, another player that I feel the really young player, came into his own the last 6 games, or recovered a fumble over here, a rare fumble, I would say, but by J.J. Taylor, putting the offense in great position. So when you look at the offense, Ralph, okay game for Manny. I mean, like the rest of the unit, played much better in the second half than the first half. Eno Benjamin scores 3 touchdowns, but has only 80 yards rushing, and I thought Arizona, for the first 3 quarters, did an excellent job bottling him. N'Keal Harry, I thought that was one of the best defensive jobs that we saw on this talented junior wide receiver, who honestly had a tough game against Oregon even the week before. What did you see from this offense again, really changing from the first 3 quarters to the fourth quarter, which allowed them to win this game? And again, you definitely credit the defense some with timely turnovers, a great field position, but it was almost a total different offense in the fourth quarter.
Sticking with it, and I think that Arizona State, if there have been, if you could pinpoint 5 complaints, one of the 5 would be that when something's not working, Arizona State seems to abandon it, and so there have been games this year when the run's not working, they get away from it completely, which usually happens in a second half after Eno's already had 20 or so carries, and he's already run for about 150 yards. In this case, he only had about 10 carries, in the first half, and he had plenty of juice left, and it was just a matter of sticking with it. Nick Ralston as a lead blocker is huge for them. When Zach Robertson and Stephen Miller had their head in the game, they were getting a lot of push on that offensive line. Cole Cabral continues to just stand out amongst all of his Pac-12 peers as a big physical center. And so it was really a matter of sticking with those things. And there seemed to be, on some of these turnovers, a moment of shock for University of Arizona. Like, how could Khalil Tate have let that ball go on the sideline that Ashari Crosswell ended up intercepting? And before they even had the chance to react, Benjamin's in the end zone, and Tyler Johnson falling on that fumble. Yeah, they get a stop, but then points go on the board, and so you don't feel like you really got to stop at all. And then you start doing the math in your head. You're thinking about other things. Wow, if ASU gets 6, then all of a sudden they have a lead. And so I think it was just a matter of being opportunistic, and I don't think they did anything exceptionally well, because especially on that possession where they ended up having to kick a field goal, they get away from the run that they just finished, pounding into the end zone, and they don't really go back to that. And so it's a situation where they took advantage of the opportunities that they had late in the game, and University of Arizona gave them a couple of gifts, and they unwrapped those gifts.
So we're sitting over here at the end of the regular season, deja vu all over again. 7-5 record, second place in the Pac-12 South. If your wishes were to get a quick getaway for Christmas to Las Vegas, you might just get that wish. I think that is the clubhouse leader in terms of the bowl opportunities for Arizona State. We're going to have time to sum up this season after the bowl game, obviously, but just quick summation, Ralph. When you look at everything that transpired in this tumultuous offseason in Tempe from last year to this year, you're sitting basically at the same position you were this time last year. But do you consider this season a success, or maybe really just a lot of missed opportunities, losing a lot of close games, and really more importantly, letting the Pac-12 South championship slip in between your fingers when he had a chance to really win that title when he was still controlling your own destiny a couple weeks ago?
I don't look at it as having a lack of success, but I'm starting to see a little bit more of how I think Herm Edwards looks at it, and I think ultimately that's the most important thing, right? He's in charge. After the game, no highs, no lows. He said, the bowl game we're going to isn't the bowl game I want to be in. 7-5 is not what I want to be. He's echoing the things that got him hired in the first place when Ray Anderson was looking to not be second place in a mediocre Pac-12 South, was looking to be top 15 in the country, top 3 in the conference, and he referenced like, hey, we're going to go out there, we got to get some players. So he's already in there talking about recruiting. He sounds a whole lot like a college coach to me, but just without really any of the animation. I think he probably looks at 2018 as the first half of his first season. He's going to be looking at 2019 as the second half. Like, how can we finish on what we've already started to build out here at Arizona State? And so, I'm trying to wrap my mind around the idea that you don't have to envelop the 2018 season in its own package and determine whether or not it's successful. I will say I think that part of Manny Wilkins' legacy does still hang in the balance. You have a kid who has beaten 9 of the 11 available Pac-12 teams, and including a top 5 team. He beat U of A in Tempe. He beat U of A in Tucson. He's beat 2 strong out-of-conference opponents, including a top 15 Michigan State. The one thing that he has really yet to do, and obviously he's not going to get a chance to beat Stanford or beat Washington State, but the one thing that he has not had a chance to do yet is go and get a bowl game. And so I think that's going to be the next thing, and I think that this is a team that might potentially take it a lot more seriously than last year's 7-5 squad that was having to deal with the distraction of having already fired a coach.
So the regular season comes to an end, but lots for Arizona State to accomplish. There's going to be bowl practices coming up in the next several weeks. We should know Arizona State's bowl faith on the 2nd of December on a Sunday. And recruiting, like Herm Edwards said, these coaches already starting Sunday are going to be on the road. If you followed us in the Devil's Huddle and our premium content, it's shaping to be up a wild finish for Arizona State's recruiting class, with an excellent chance to land a lot of high caliber players on this team. And we saw the Sun Devil team play so many freshmen, and I think the eye for talent of this coaching staff, if nothing else, is definitely improvement from what we saw in years past. So it's definitely going to be a lot of things to talk about and to cover. So we hope you keep it locked in on Devil's Digest for the rest of our coverage in the next few weeks and few months. For Ralph Amsden, this is Hood Rubino reporting from Arizona Stadium, where the Territorial Cup stays in Tempe as Arizona State beats University of Arizona 41-40.